I hope that you have gained first-hand experience seeing how devices, right over here, our devices MKR, or even your handphone can take the role as client. And within this MQTT architecture, we have the broker doing the heavy lifting, which is to maintain a list of subscribers and at the same time doing the delivery job, right? Like what we have seen last week, the client published to this particular topic called pressure. And whenever the client has a new value, for example, 120, when it published to the broker will check its bookkeeping in terms of who are the ones that have subscribed to pressure. So in this case, these are the topics subscribed by client R1 and another client R1. All right. And what happened is that when the broker receives 120, it will then do the job of delivering to both of them. Right. Okay. So back onto this slide, what I was trying to highlight is that there are topics that is important, which I tried to describe last week during the lectorial, saying that topics are equivalent to channels or like our radio station frequency that you need to tune to. Then in joining this particular ecosystem of this MQTT, client need to establish their roles, whether they are a publisher or are they the subscriber. So in any of these roles that the client is taking, they must inform or register with the broker. So messages in this case could be value, could be text message. And this is the part that some of you has asked what is the meaning of payload. So payload refers to the content, refers to the message, refers to the value. All right. So in MQTT context, when we talk about payload refers to the message that the publisher is trying to send out to the broker. Finally, the broker, all right at the center, the heart of MQTT architecture is the one responsible to receive, to filter, to route, and send and deliver messages. So there are a couple of brokers around. Right here, I saw that some of you also put in some of these names in the grade scope assignment, like Mosquito, all right, Rabbit MQ refers to MQTT, the MQ, and a few more. All right, so HiveMQ.com is a commercial online service provider. They provide MQTT broker for the public to make use of, and in this case, it's a paid service. You have to subscribe before you can make use of their services. So in terms of connection, so last week when I asked many of you about the similarities and differences, you all had a hard time. Probably I've not covered the content over here. So when client try to connect to the broker, it is actually using TCP to connect to the broker. Okay, once connected, once the connection is established, the client will remain connected. So this connection is never broken, even when there's no data sent or received. This is to save on the bandwidth and the and other heavy content or headers that you need to establish every time you connect. All right, so this is unique to MQTT. So once connected, they will stay on. And how would the broker know that the clients are still around? This is the keep alive message, right? So the clients will constantly send a keep alive message to the broker. So the broker will know that this client is still around. Okay, so this is one of the features, how broker will know the clients are still around. And in our lab activity, you would also learn that every client has to have a unique name. All right, this is for the purpose of letting the broker know who are the ones that have subscribed or have published. And especially for subscribed clients, the broker will know who to send to, right? So this is why it has to have unique name. Over here shows the transaction behind the scene as a client first try to connect to the broker. Upon confirmation, the broker will send an acknowledgement back to the client. And then subsequently, depending on the role of the client can send a subscribe or a publish command to the broker, so the broker can take note and reply back with either subscription acknowledgement or publish acknowledgement. All right, so there are a couple of exchange of data when connection is established or when publish or subscribe request has been made upon to the broker. Next, I want to share with you a concept in MQTT called clean session. What is the meaning of clean session? The clean session is actually to describe the relationship between clients and the broker, right? So it is to establish a arrangement whereby when we have a clean session, it means that the broker is not expected to remember anything, all right? Not expected. What does that mean? When a client get disconnection or get disconnected from the broker, the client must resubscribe or request for publishing access whenever they reconnect. All right, so this is like what we have discussed in Lectorial, one of the script that we have seen. All right, why do we need to do a reconnection for MQTT? And why do we need to resubscribe? So this is because for most MQTT broker, they are configured to have clean session. Okay, I repeat again, a clean session is whereby when a client disconnect, the broker is not expected to remember anything about that client, right? Therefore, upon reconnection, the client must resubscribe so that the broker will know what message to send to them. Okay. Also in terms of quality of service, in case some of you have forgotten, in our last week lecture, I talked about QoS 0, 1, or 2. They determines the different level of delivery. All right, so this part, I leave it to you to revisit last week recording in case you forgot what QoS refers to. Okay, so clean session is just one of the many configuration that the broker has. The other one is in fact last will message. This is also a configuration within the broker settings. If the last will message is enabled, so what does this really do? This last will message is actually for publisher, all right, for the publisher to establish, which means whenever a MQTT client take the role of a publisher, it can decide whether to create a last will message, just like human, just like us. We can set a will so that in any mishap or accident that happen, the will then take into action or kick into action. So similarly, in an MQTT environment, the publisher can set up a last will message, just like what I've described as us or as people with a will, or to describe how your inheritance or how your property or your asset is going to be distributed. So the will describe all this information. So for MQTT, as we know, clients can get disconnected, right? And when that happens, we want the last will to be published to all the subscribers. Okay, so let me continue the points here. So the last will message is set by the publishing client. So the publisher will decide what message to be in the last will, and what is going to happen. And what is going to happen is that when there's a disconnection, right? When the publisher disconnect, then when the publisher disconnect, normally the last will not send, which means when the publisher disconnect properly, all right, notifying that the broker that is going to disconnect, then the last will not be sent. When will the last will be sent? The last will be sent when the publisher fails to connect. Could be due to power failure, could be due to Wi-Fi disconnection, or interrupted prematurely. And this is the part where the last will message, which has been stored within the broker, will be sent to any of the subscribing client to that particular topic. Right? I hope that it is clear to you pertaining to the last will message. Some of you might be wondering, why is there a need for such a thing? This is a fail-safe arrangement whereby if you have a IoT infrastructure with many components relying on this publisher information, and especially in critical mission where the publisher is sending commands out, and what happened is that we know that this connection can happen if there's a sabotage on this particular publisher. The last will message will come in very handy, right? Either for the publisher to have a last will message for the client to carry on as per normal, or to stop all action in case of any of the issues that have arisen. Therefore, it depends on your need and your use case. Last will message can provide any one of these commands for your subscriber clients to carry on with their missions. Okay, I'll pause here for a while to see if anyone have any question about these two configuration within the broker settings. Unfortunately for ThinkSpeak, right, ThinkSpeak don't really send up last will message within the broker. Therefore, there's not much of a tests or examples that I can show you, right? But in other MQTT broker, this is one of the features that has been set up or an options for users to consider. Okay, so with those configuration, those are things that you can relate to. All right, now I'm going to talk about topics. And I think last week lab sessions, many of you find it challenging to really follow some of the topics. But I was glad to see some of you having to have success exchanging data with the ThinkSpeak broker. So over here, I hope that with this sharing on MQT topics, I can close the gaps in case those of you are still confused with how to structure MQTT topics. So within these slides, I'm sharing it in a more generic way because most MQTT broker don't decide or do not dictate how the topics is going to be structured. Unfortunately, or in fact, ThinkSpeak has to do it that way so that it is more organized within ThinkSpeak. But in short, topics, as I mentioned, refers to the channel, how things or how messages are distributed or organized. Therefore, there must be some structure in terms of topics formatting. And in this case, the use of the slash. Yeah, most of you coming to the lab would have seen the use of this slash as a delimiter. This delimiter is to separate the names that we put up. So for example, we could have the first layer being MME3231 slash, which means now we are going down to the second level. The second level refers to MEC2261 with another slash comes with the third level, which is temperature. So the use of the slash is for us to organize the different hierarchy layers or levels that you want to deal with when you are doing monitoring and so on. So one good example could be if we want to set different level within a nation, for example, we could start off with country like Singapore, SG, slash, then we could have town, all right, which town you want to talk about. It could be in Ang Mo Kio, all right, slash, then we could have street names and slash with block number, slash unit number, and so on. So this is where we can structure how things can be organized. Why do we want to organize with this delimiter? Later I will show you when we need to extract data, when we need to subscribe to certain information. With this hierarchy arrangement, it will be easier for you to identify and also easier for you to filter out what do you really need. Okay, and like all structure and formatting, there are certain criteria that you need to take note. Right, first of all, if you choose the names of the topics to be more descriptive, more user-friendly, and look at it, or at least when you read the topics, you know what the topics and what it refers to, right? Therefore, do be mindful, it is case sensitive, and it has to be UTF string or text in this case, or text character, and minimally, it must be at least 1 character long for each of the names, all right?